there's this really, really interesting phenomenon on Wikipedia where if you click on the first link of an article, the first hyperlink, and you keep clicking that for every subsequent article, eventually, 97% of the time, you get to the page on philosophy. Why does that do that? How does that work? Like, how do we actually get to philosophy from any article? There's this term coined by Eleanor Roche, prototype theory, which basically says that we organize our knowledge of a concept based on the average of that category, based on a prototype. Think of a guppy, right? If I asked you to think about the typical pet, you're probably going to think of a dog or a cat. You're not thinking of a guppy. If I ask you to think about the typical fish, you're probably thinking of a cod or a salmon. You're not thinking of a guppy. But if I ask you to think about the typical pet fish, well, guppy's coming up on that list, right? We can also do the same activity with chairs, right? You're probably thinking of the classic kitchen chair. You know, you're thinking of something that has a back behind it. You're thinking of something with maybe 4 legs, with armrests. You're probably not thinking of, you know, that weird kneeling chair that was going viral on TikTok, or also probably not a beanbag. So this kind of leads us to something that this one philosopher, Wittgenstein, called family resemblance. Basically, his whole point was that members of a category all overlap in similarity. We know that there's something in common, but they don't really share one single feature. There's always an outlier. His example was games. Think of the category of games. You can think about ball games, you can think about playground games, you can think about card games, but they're all different. So how do we come up with definitions then, right? Like, how do we define anything if everything is this complicated? Hayakawa says that we can think about meaning based on the ladder of abstraction. Okay, and abstract here is the root word there. As we climb up this ladder, our understanding of concepts get more and more broad, more and more abstract. This exact chair right now, the one that we are talking about, is at the base of the ladder. That's the most concrete thing. And then we can abstract that more by referring to a wooden kitchen chair, a chair, seating, furniture, objects, matter, and we can keep going from there. This was a quote he wrote back in 1939. There's no such thing as a house. A house is an abstraction. There are only houses, house 1, house 2, house 3, and so on. Each one is distinct, each with characteristics not possessed by other houses. The problem with this, though, is that you can kind of approach chair from many different angles. You can think about it as furniture. You can also think about it as ergonomics, as carpentry, as art history, as sociology. Our knowledge of a chair isn't linear. It's not that we have our most basic understanding of chair on the bottom and everything else on top. It all kind of connects in a really weird way. Hyperlinks do something really cool. They establish a relationship between ideas. So if we look at the description for chair, right, we see a few hyperlinks here: seat, wood, metal, and upholstery. Type of seat is the first hyperlink that we see. It places chair in a broader category, but not all the hyperlinks do that. If we look at the description for parody, the first hyperlink we see is satirical, which links to the page on satire. I wouldn't really say satire is more abstract than parody. It's not like it's a larger container. It's kind of lateral to it, like it's beside parody. So we're kind of circling a larger idea. But then when you go to the page on satire, the first hyperlink we see is genre, which I do think places satire in a larger category, right? There's multiple genres listed on the genre page. But as we keep clicking these hyperlinks and as we keep exploring definitions of definitions of definitions, then we slowly start to circle toward our most core knowledge of that topic. The Wikipedia philosophy game is this personified. Can someone give me a Wikipedia article? Topic? Any topic?
Cats the musical.
Cats the musical. Let's just do cat. So we can see how we're going through all the categories, all the articles on the left here, bringing us to philosophy. Let's do one more. Aha, okay, so this is a good example that doesn't work. So why do those not work, right? What's going on in that 3% that doesn't actually bring you to philosophy? Certain pages break the game. Usually what's happening is a hyperlink loop, but sometimes articles are a bit more young and they contain broken hyperlinks or no outgoing links at all. The reason that I think this is actually interesting is because what we're seeing is not something by design, right? We're not seeing that Wikipedia sat down and they're like, we're going to make the philosophy game. What's happening is that emerges. That's just something that happens with the way that we structure knowledge. Millions of Wikipedia editors, Wikipedians as they're called, make small decisions about what are the definitions we're going to use, what concepts should link when, which ideas are broad versus specific. The lamest edit wars is one of my favorite lists, right after list of lists of lists, that is basically a collection of every time Wikipedians just lost their mind over very small, mundane decisions that don't really matter. Some of my favorites: awareness, should philosophy or psychology be the first link in the lead? So funny enough, before the philosophy game was 97%, a lot of them actually led to psychology too, which makes sense, right? If we're thinking about this as like the spiral toward our most core concepts, psychology is right up there with how we understand a lot of concepts. TLDR, our knowledge of a concept depends on this interconnection, right? This interplay between all of these different concepts. Nothing exists in isolation. And Wikipedia's structure allows us to interact with that. I think that's what makes it so cool to me, because with a physical encyclopedia, we don't actually get the opportunity to click on hyperlinks. And the gravity pull that we see toward philosophy emerges by the social agreement for how we've decided collectively to organize our knowledge. Thanks.